My D&D campaign sucked until I started incorporating these 3 tools into my games. And by the end of the video, I'll show you how to combine all 3 into a mechanic that can make your game world come alive. The first tool is factions, a group of like-minded individuals who share a common goal. These are your secret cults, your thieves guilds, your emerald enclaves, and Zentarum. See, I know some D&D lore. When I'm creating a faction in my game world, I approach them as if they were one big NPC. So I ask myself, what do they want? What do they not want? And what's keeping them from getting what they want right at this moment? But after we answer these, we're gonna sprinkle in some secrets and incongruency. I'll define that big word here in a second. Let's create a thieves guild as an example. What do they want? Money and freedom, in a broad sense, sure, but the more specific, the better we'll answer our follow-up questions. They may want something specific related to another faction, such as the Night Watchman within the city the Thieves Guild operates in. There's a new captain of the guard who is very, very good at his job, that the thieves would love to see removed. What don't the Thieves Guild want? Imprisonment, poverty, anything opposite of their wants. And we can get specific here too, such as not wanting their secret cipher system they've put on houses to be discovered and cracked by the Night Watchman. What's specifically keeping them from reaching their goals? Well, they don't know much about the captain of the guard. They can't find out any information about his personal life, who his family is to threaten them, nothing. Nobody in the Thieves Guild can get close enough without getting caught. And as to the why, well, we'll leave that up to the players to discover that themselves. We can repeat this with the Night Watch and any other factions you come up with in your adventure. But now we can start coming up with individuals within that faction. But we embellish them with both secrets and a bit of incongruency, which is a concept I learned from Joseph Manola's blog. Tropes and cliches are fun when you're experiencing them for the first time, but if we want to create a campaign that feels realistic and complex without actually being complex to run, we give NPCs within our game secrets and incongruency, which means to not agree. What could be some details or traits that doesn't fit our initial stereotypical picture of a Thieves Guild? Let's make an NPC within the Thieves Guild as an example. Pandora, the leader of the Thieves Guild, has her own wants, don't wants, and secrets, but will also add an incongruency to shake things up. Pandora wants order in her guild. Maybe she's been challenged in the past as a guild leader. Maybe there's some sort of trial or duel guild members can evoke against their leader. We can get further into the weeds later. What she doesn't want is obviously to lose her leadership position, but that's a little too generic for me. What specifically would make her concerned about this don't want? And I think I found an answer by giving her a secret. She is pregnant. With the captain of the guard? You get the idea. Her incongruency is that she has a relationship that connects her outside of her circle. And this incongruency might be why the Thieves Guild faction can't get their want. Their own leader is trying to hold on to both her forbidden relationship and the current position she holds within the guild. And eventually, such as when the players visit the Thieves Guild, things become a bit more complicated within this story. If you want to tangle this web even further, create more specific NPCs within each faction with their own wants, don't wants, secrets, and incongruencies, and then let their motivations play out at the table. But if you want to see an example of factions within a unique setting, then check out my sponsors over at The Wandering... Homie and the Dude's Wandering Tavern Kickstarter is out now. A system-neutral setting inspired by the only anime I can comfortably tell other people I watch. You can drop into any tabletop campaign because it's up there in the sky. But how do I... Oh? Travel to the Wandering Tavern with 6 new airships. Explore a fully mapped out city with 15 giant battle maps. Rub shoulders with the various factions, each with their own quests, like these automatons who are about one bad customer away from starting a mutiny.
Are you going to be paying for that?
So, if you're looking for a unique setting to drop in your game or to just use straight up, check out the Wandering Tavern Kickstarter in the description below! Time! Perhaps the biggest, most influential tool in my campaign was incorporating timers. And for this, I gotta give Hankrin Fernale, aka Ingrid Bernal, aka Brandish Gilham, aka Runehammer to thank on his channel for opening my eyes to the potential of the D4. If you want to make your campaign feel alive, the world needs to convey some sort of motion. You cannot have a meaningful campaign if strict time records are not kept. I think somebody within our hobby said that before. However you keep track of time during your game, be it in rounds during combat, turns during exploration, or days or weeks or even months during downtime, roll the biggest D4 you got, openly, in front of your players. At the end of each turn, tick down that D4 by 1. Once it reaches 0, something happens. And typically, it's something not good. In D4 rounds, the rocks will fall and everyone dies. In D4 rounds, the skeleton horde will reach you. In D4 rounds, the ritual will be complete. Nobody likes the timer in XCOM 2, but it's necessary to get you to take risks instead of hemming and hawing over every possible decision. Without timers, your game will die slowly and painfully as your players ask redundant questions to the NPCs or spend 45 IRL minutes exploring a single room in your dungeon crawl. So take a little more time in your prep to find ways to make time matter within your campaign scenarios. Scenarios. But if you ignore this third tool, you might find yourself getting overwhelmed by all the decision-making of how to make the world feel realistic. I eliminate all the micro decisions in my prep and play by using reaction tables. Reaction tables were once a staple in older editions of Dungeons & Dragons, but they can be used verbatim in practically any game. This takes away the decision of how a faction, an NPC, or a monster reacts to your players, because we both know players can say the darndest things. Reaction rolls don't just make things random for the sake of random. They're rolled on a 2d6 table, which means the results are on a bell curve. Certain results come up more often than others. It's randomly predictable. When a player interacts with an NPC, roll 2d6 straight up. This is the initial reaction, how they're feeling before the PCs appeared. Use this as a guide for how the NPC acts. Allow the players to react in their own way, and then you can roll the 2d6 again, using either the player character's charisma or by letting what the player character specifically said or did determine the bonuses or penalties to this second roll. I personally like to have a separate positive and negative reaction table to choose from based on the situation. The results are still the same, but the chances of those results are affected by how the players interacted with the NPC or creature. But we can combine all three of these tools into a unique way of maintaining our game world, both within the realm of what the player characters are doing, and even outside that realm, in places that the player characters have chosen to ignore. I'll give you an example from my last campaign. I was running a hex crawl where specific hexes contained entire adventures, such as having the Black Worm of Brandidsford over here in this hex, while having the events of Black Apple Brew happening way over there on that hex. I hinted through rumors that the town of Brandidsford was having a slight dragon issue, and my players chose to ignore it completely. So, I started a timer. In 1d4 game sessions, something was going to happen to Brandidsford, but I didn't know what. I knew what the dragon, the townsfolk, and some of the other minor factions and NPCs within that adventure wanted in the general sense, but I was unsure how the conflict in Brandidsford would play out if the players were off doing something else entirely. So, when that timer ticked to 0, during my prep, I rolled a reaction roll and got a pretty bad result. And in my prep notes, all I put down was what I believed would be a pretty bad outcome for Brandidsford as a whole. The dragon had managed to breach the town's walls, killing several townsfolk before retreating back to his lair. I filtered this information through rumors in my game to the players, and in 1d4 sessions, I would roll another reaction roll and advance Brandidsford's story unless the players reached the town before then. I do this for all of my major locations that the players have seen or heard of, because my game world is moving, regardless of you going out and adventuring or staying at your starting town and running a bakery. I give my players the agency to affect any part of my campaign world, including the agency to discover discover what can happen if they do nothing. So what do you do to make your campaign world feel alive? If you're curious about how I create a more open-ended campaign like I prefer, check out this video on how to start your own sandbox campaign. Thanks to Homie and the Dude for sponsoring this video. Be sure to check out the Wandering Tavern Kickstarter below. Thank you, Coffee Masters, scroll link here. But that's all I've got for now. See ya!